Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm doing an Elementsaber deck profile, but not just any Elementsaber deck profile, a Dark Armed Dragon Turbo Elementsaber deck profile. So I'm really excited for this one, because this one basically turbos through the deck to get out Dark Armed Dragon as quickly as possible, to special summon to your side of the field, and also use the Elementsaber engine in tandem with that, which is really, really fun. But without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next so you can become part of the notification squad. Definitely check out the Patreon and the Ko-Fi down in the description below. So if you guys would like to donate to the channel, you can definitely check that out, and let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Elementsaber Lupani Mana. So something to keep in mind about this deck is that this deck basically functions around summoning this and Dark Armed Dragon, which is really cool because of the effect. Just for some upkeep, we're going to go ahead and go over one spell card in this deck, which makes this entire deck work, which is the Palace of the Elemental Lords. We need to go over this card first because it makes all the effects not suck. So basically what this does is Palace of the Elemental Lords has the effect of all monsters you control gain attack and defense equal to the number of different attributes in your graveyard times 200. Now how does that make it so your Dark Armed Dragon is able to summon if you're playing so many different attributes? Well, all the Elementsabers share the abilities that you can change their particular attribute while they're in the graveyard, which is really cool. But this card also lets you, once per turn, add an Elemental Saber monster from your deck to your hand, but skip the battle phase of your next turn. But it also has this effect, which is really important. Once per turn, if an Elementsaber monster is in your hand or field which send cards from your hand to the graveyard, you can activate this effect by sending that many Elementsaber monsters from your deck instead. So that's the important effect about this card that really comes into play really importantly with this deck. So now we're past that, let's get into the rest of the deck. So, for Elementsaber Lupani Mana, basically the effect of this card is that you send two other monsters from your hand or graveyard, or deck if you had the field spell on your side of the field, to the graveyard, and then special summon this card from your hand. You only use this effect once per turn, and then if you sent a Earth or Wind, it can't be targeted by, or can't be destroyed by battle. If you send a Wind or Fire, it can't be destroyed by card effects, and if you send a Light or Dark, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects at all, which is really cool. We play 3 copies of Anna. We play 3 copies of the Earth one. Basically what she does is you can send an Elementsaber from your hand to the graveyard, and if you control the Palace, you can send it from the deck. Now basically what her effect is that you get to target an Elementsaber in your grave or an Elemental Lord that was been properly summoned, and then special summon that card, ignoring its summoning conditions to your side of the field. And then it has the ability that all Elementsabers share, which word for word goes, you can declare one attribute, and this card becomes that attribute until the end phase in your graveyard. We play 2 copies of Makaina. Makaina basically has the ability that lets you send an Elementsaber, and then you get to add a Elementsaber or Elemental Lord from your deck to your hand, which is really a good effect. 2 copies of Lupana. This card is really good because it lets you target spells and traps, or when a spell or trap is activated, you can send an Elemental Saber and then negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it, which is really a good effect to be able to negate and destroy those card effects. 1 copy of Malehu. Malehu is essentially Book of Moon, which is really good for this deck, but you really, really want to focus on the other ones. Malehu is a good 1900 beat stick, and gets even bigger when you have the other elemental, or when you have the Palace on the field, because it boosts them all up by 200 attack for each different element. 1 copy of Mallow. Mallow is really good too, because basically what he does is he lets you Foolish Burial a Elemental Saber or Elemental Lord from your deck to the graveyard, which if you had the Palace, he lets you mill 2 instead of 1, which is really cool. 1 copy of Nalu. Nalu is alright. I really wanted to play them all, so I played a single copy of Nalu as well. Basically what she does is she lets you target an Elementsaber or Elemental Lord monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. Not the greatest effect, but she helps. For the boss monsters of the deck, we're playing a single copy of the Phosphorage, the Elemental Lord, which is basically Raigeki on summon. You have to have 5 light monsters in your graveyard in order to special summon this card, and then when it's special summoned, you destroy all monsters your opponent controls, just period. It's Raigeki, which is really cool. And we play 3 copies. Thank Konami. Thank you so much for giving us back Dark Armed Dragon at 3. Definitely give us a like, comment, and subscribe for that one, guys. Basically, Dark Armed Dragon in this deck is the big boss monster of this deck. You're going to draw this card. It's really easy to get to in this deck. And basically, you're going to thin the deck so fast that you're going to draw this card, if you're not first turn, second turn, and you're going to really quickly summon this card. But basically, it has the ability that if you have exactly 3 dark monsters in your graveyard, which all of these cards level or attribute manipulating, is really easy to have those 3 dark monsters in your graveyard. You can instantly special summon this card from your hand, and then you can banish a dark monster from your graveyard, which they all count as dark when you want them to count as dark. You special summon this card and banish a card from your graveyard, and then destroy a card on the field. And you can do that as many times as you have dark monsters in your graveyard. Then for the last 3 monsters, we play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which the Ash Blossoms are really nice in here because you really need those hand traps just to stop your opponent from doing all sorts of shenanigans and stuff like that. So that's it for the monsters. Let's get into the spells. Got to put Dark Armed Dragon on the top because it's the boss. Then we play 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion really helps out in this deck because basically what Instant Fusion does is it lets us go through with a lot of our plays and can protect our field spells and stuff like that with our copies of Millenniumize Restrict. You can protect it with Millenniumize Restrict. You can gobble up monsters with your Thousand Eyes Restrict. Or you can use Carbonella Warrior to go into Isolde, which helps us even more in this deck because you're going to be summoning Isolde to search a lot of your monsters because they're all warriors, which is really, really helpful. Then we play 3 copies of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a super helpful card that just hits those hand traps that we just don't want to deal with in this deck, like DD Crow and stuff like that. 1 copy of Terraforming to search our field spell because the field spell is so pivotal in this deck to make it work. 1 copy of Foolish Burial, because Foolish Burial helps us get our monsters to the graveyard to call different attributes. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, which helps us out as well, because you do need the Monster Reborn sometimes, just to get those extra monsters back out of the graveyard to swarm your opponent. 1 copy of Rhoda, because all of our monsters are warrior monsters, except Dark Armed Dragon and Phosphoridge. For our equip spells for Isolde, we're playing a single copy of DDR, which works really well if you top deck it in this deck, because you're banishing stuff with Dark Armed Dragon's effect to be able to pop stuff. 1 copy of Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, which helps out with the nightmares in this deck that you play in the extra deck, and also boosts your monster up by 300, and it's warriors, so it works. 1 copy of Moon Mirror Shield. Moon Mirror Shield boosts our monsters up when it battles an opponent's monster, increases its attack times the monster's attack points, plus 100 attack points to make it the strongest monster on the field, which is really cool. And a single copy of Living Fossil, which really helps out in this deck, because Living Fossil basically gives us that ability to bring back a monster. It's kind of like another Monster Reborn. And then we play 3 copies of the Palace of the Elemental Lords, which is the most important card in this entire deck that you're trying to get to as quickly as possible to be able to go after your opponent with your Dark Armed Dragons, with your Phosphoridge, and with your other monsters that are so pivotal to this strategy. So that's it for the spells. Let's get into the traps, which we actually play 4 traps in this deck. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Metaverse. You need Metaverse because it instantly puts your copy of Palace on the field. It's like playing 5 copies of the Palace, which is really pivotal. And 3 copies of Elemental Training. Elemental Training is awesome. Basically, it lets you target your opponent. Cannot target your Elemental Lords or your Palace. They can't target your Palace, which is just awesome. And then you control with card effects, and then also you cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then once per turn, you can tribute a monster, special summon a Elemental Lore or Elemensaber monster from your deck with a different original attribute from the monsters on your field or something like that. So summon 1 Elemensaber monster from your deck with a different original attribute than that monster's, which is really cool because you just have to tribute that one. And then basically let you tag them in and out. And then you can send this card face up from the field to the graveyard and discard your entire hand to add an Elemental Lord from monster from your graveyard to your hand, which is going to be our Phosphoridge because it's the best Elemental Lord, to be honest with you, in this deck. You can play any Elemental Lord you want. You can play Windrose, you can play Grand Soil, Mora Glacia, or Pyrorex, any of them, or the Umbrella Mirage. You can play any of them that you want in this deck as in that slot. Then if you're not feeling the Dark Armed Dragon, you can drop those and play more copies of the Elemental Lords if you want to go for more of a pure variant. But I'm Dark Armed Duelist, guys. You know what I'm going for. So that's it for the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Dark Armed the Annihilation, Dragon of Annihilation. This card basically gives us an extra pop, and which is really cool. You can make it on top of our Dark Armed Dragon if you have exactly 5 dark monsters in your graveyard. by just overlaying it on top of him. You also make Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon in this deck a little bit. It helps you burn for 500. One copy of Boral Sword. Boral Sword helps us OTK our opponent just a little bit. You're not going to make this that often, but it's there if you need it. Avermax, same thing. You're not going to make it too often, but it's there if you need it. One copy of Unicorn, just to bounce stuff on your opponent's side of the field. If Dark Armed Dragon can't pop it, Unicorn's going to spin it. One copy of Phoenix, just to pop those spells and traps. Cerberus to pop monsters, because we don't already have enough of that with Dark Armed Dragon. 2 copies of Isolde. You need the Isoldes in this deck. They are so pivotal to this deck. You need the Isoldes because what they're going to do is you special summon this card to your side of the field, send between 1 and 4 equip spells to your graveyard, and then it lets you add a monster, lets you special summon that monster from your deck to your side of the field. And also, when it's link summon, you get to add a warrior monster from your deck to your hand. So it's basically like 2 searches, or a search and a special summon, which is really cool. A single copy of Gravity Controller for our Thousand Eyes, because you can summon this card if you summon the Thousand Eyes in the extra monster zone, which really comes in handy. 1 copy of Link Rebo. Link Rebo helps out with the copy of your Thousand Eyes. It's either or. If you need to pop something, you go for this. If you need to stop an attack, you go for this. Or spin something, or stop an attack. Alamirage, you make this every so often. It protects your Dark Armed a little bit. Carbonella Warrior, I just use this as another target for my Isolde to link away with. 1 copy of Millennium Eyes. Millennium Eyes helps me gobble up cards that my opponent activates, which is really helpful. And a single copy of Thousand Eyes, and both of these also count as darks, which is really helpful to gobble up other monsters that Dark Arm can't pop. So that's pretty much it for the deck. I hope you enjoyed this deck. It's a different take. It's not the Shaddoll take of the deck that we did before. If you guys want to get another Shaddoll Elementsaber deck, let me know. It might be a little bit before I update Elementsabers, but let me know what you guys want to see. So definitely like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of the notification squad, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you around, guys.